What's up, everyone? It's Bones here. In today's video, I'll be featuring the new EV cards that we'll be getting in Cyberstorm Access. But before I begin, if you could happen to click on those thumbs up and subscribe buttons, it would be greatly appreciated, as it goes a long way in supporting the channel and shows me that you like content like this. Clicking on those notification bells would also mean a lot, as they notify you when I upload on the channel. So for this first quote-unquote replay here, I just want to show the Draw 6 combo and go over the new cards before I get into the games. And the first one that we have here is the Lily, and this one reads: if this card is normal or special summoned, you can add one EV card from your deck to your hand, except a quick play spell. You can target one EV quick play spell in your graveyard, special summon one Exceed monster that mentions it from your extra deck by using this face-up card you control as material, and if you do, attach that target to the special summon monster as additional material. This is treated as an Exceed summon. You can only use each effect of Lily once per turn. So this is a big piece of support because it's another main deck monster that we can bring out from the quick plays. As you see, we have the second one here, and this is Sleepy Memory. You can apply this effect, then you can discard one card, and if you do, special summon one level 1 EV monster from your deck. Once applied, the next battle or effect damage you take this turn becomes 0. An EV Exceed monster that has this card as material gains this effect. Once per turn, during your opponent's standby phase, you can draw one card. So this is the card that enables the Draw 6 that you've probably heard of if you haven't seen it. And the Lily is a great card for the archetype, not just because it's another name, but the fact that the OG EV forces you to excavate and depends on hit or missing a name to add off of it. This one just directly searches a non-quick play to your hand, which we have the continuous spell to get us into the rest of the archetype. So I'm going to start this one by activating the field spell, and then from here we can normal summon the Lily. We'll use the Lily's effect, which will be able to net us a search for the friend, and from here we'll be able to pick 3 cards of our choosing that our opponent will randomly pick in order to add to our hand as we get the leap. And then from here we'll use the effect of the Sleepy Memory, we'll pitch the Pretty Memory, and from here we'll bring out the Eevee, as we're going to use the Eevee, and the Eevee will potentially get us a hit, as we'll be able to get the Sleepy Memory off of it. And then from here we'll be able to use the Sleepy again, but we're not going to discard in order to get a body, we just want it in the graveyard, as we're going to use the Eevee now in order to go into the Plump, and we'll attach the Delicious Memory to it. Plump is a huge piece of this archetype now because you're able to put back the Sleepy Memories onto it from the graveyard that you use, along with anything else that you may have. But we're going to use the Lily, and we're going to go into the Beauty in order to give us a monster negation, along with the graveyard disruptions potentially from the Plump. But from here we're going to then use the effect of the field spell, as we can then get another copy of the Sleepy Memory to it. So now we have 3 Sleepy Memory, which will net us 3 draws on our opponent's standby phase, as we're going to get those now. And I'm just going to draw into random cards here. You don't even have to detach for it, which is nice. But now we're going to use the leap, go into our Nor, and the Nor is another huge piece for this archetype, as it's probably something you've seen already. It becomes a pseudo towers. It's just unaffected by your opponent's activated effects, which is important to note because in random matchups like Heroes, where they have D-Hero Plasma, number 41 can also pose a little bit of a problem if you don't have an immediate response for that. But those are just some things that you should keep in mind, as we're going to draw 3 more, because the EV Quick Play, the Sleepy Memory, the new one, is not a hard once per turn, and because the Nor is a new monster that's summoned, we can just get 3 more draws. Now, I'm going to do 2 replays going first and second, and I wanted to get a full match in for the video, but people kept quitting. It was just difficult to get a full match this time around for the video because of the time constraints I have. That being said, I do plan on bringing matches into the channel, so please be patient. And we're going to start this one by going against Naturia Runic, and from here we're then going to start by activating my friend. We're going first this one, and we'll be able to get ourselves a search for the Lily, as you want to be able to kind of loop these, or not really loop these, but if you have Lily, get my friend, and if you have my friend, get Lily, because it directly gets you into the pieces that you want. We're then going to be able to get the leap cheap, and not only does it get you directly into the pieces, but the Lily is a body. We already have quick play access that we can use in order to go into the plump or whatever else you go into. But from here, we're then going to use the effect of the Delicious, targeting the Lily, and from here we'll be able to bring out the Eevee as we're going to use its effect. And then from here, I think we're going to end up missing, as no, we do get a pretty memory or a happy memory, and then we're going to use the effect of the Lily, and from here we'll be able to go into the plump, as we're going to attach the friend onto it after we attach the Delicious off of the summon, and then we're going to set to and pass, and you can see that we have a couple of hand traps, which is pretty nice, as our opponent is going to top deck the Keldo for turn. So we get to see what our opponent is on here, as he does pitch the Agido, and he adds the Kelbeck, so from here I'm going to let that go. We're going to see that he's going to dump some Sacred Trees. We don't hit any Eevee quick plays, which is kind of unfortunate, and I think that the one thing that I also want to mention that you're seeing in this first replay, and that you may have noticed in the draw 6 quote-unquote combo that I showed you previously, it does take some setup, and it's not something that's going to be happening every turn 1. So from here we're going to chain the effect of the plump, and I did this because knowing that our opponent was on Naturia Runic, now that we see a quick play in the graveyard of the Runic archetype, we'll be able to chain the plump now, and we want to force our opponent to respond to this because we do have the leap, but more importantly, we just don't want things to get out of control before we can get into the Nor, as they don't really have any good responses for Nor unless they're happening to play Kaijus. From here, we're going to get the Nor on board with 5 materials, making it unaffected by our opponent's activated effect. Our opponent is going to use the Spring Breeze in order to bring out the Camellia. Our opponent will use the Camellia to send another copy of itself, then use the Breeze again in order to special out Mole Cricket from the hand. Then they'll use Destruction, and they're going to use its effect to special summon, and now they have access into a rank 4, and this is where our opponent tries to go for the number 41. As our opponent is then going to go into the Naturia Beast, use the effect of Mole Cricket in order to bring itself back, and then from here, our opponent attempts to go into the end phase here, as they were trying to end their main phase 1, so we're going to use the effect of the Veiler on the Bagu. Our opponent, I don't know why he did this, but he's going to try to bounce back the Nor, as obviously he's not going to be able to, and this is where Nor is actually really good against Naturia Runic, because if they can't have access into their number 41, Nor is just able to put all their stuff back, as we have multiple ways to do so with all the materials attached to it, and because its effect is not a hard once per turn. So because we have a level 1 Eevee monster as material, we can just continue to detach 2 and target a card our opponent controls, and this forces the scoop. Now for this second replay, and you'll see that we're going against Traptrix. He is on the Allure, which is kind of weird, but at the same time we only drew Engine, and this is something that I wanted to show because you're not always going to have hand traps or blowout cards, so being able to go second on a deck that can put a board, even though I warn he does make a couple of weird plays here, I feel it's still a good example of how this deck can perform going second, as I still had other options regardless of whatever he ended up doing. So our opponent is going to go first here, and they're going to start by normal summoning the Pudica. They're going to use its effect, getting the field spell. This will get them the Sarah along with an extra summon and the Parallel Exceed, but from here they're going to get access into Rafflesia, and then from there they're going to activate the field spell, activate the Allure as they'll pitch a Mantis, get 2 draws, which is unfortunate that he did see 2 Evenleys, but he's going to normal a Mantis, and then from there he'll get a search for the Arachnocampa, and then from here the Sarah will be able to set the Holtea, and this is the first sort of weird play that he makes, where instead of using the Holtea to pitch the Evenly, considering he hasn't evenly set, he's just going to special summon out the Arachnocampa, and I guess this also makes sense because at the same time his back row isn't necessarily real either. He has has an evenly in hand. So there's definitely options, but this is the way that my opponent chose to go about it. So from here, they're going to go into the new exceed, I forget the name of it, the ping, and then they're going to use its effect, which will net them a search for another copy of Putica, as that was also weird. I don't understand why they wouldn't try to get follow-up there. You'll see that we're still going to have to play through multiple disruptions here, and this is a matchup that can be a little bit rough at times because you see that we're on cards like Imperm, and I built this to counter a Rise Heart a little bit more because as long as that deck is still around, people are going to be playing Kashtira. I feel like even post Cyberstorm Access, it probably still is the best deck, and if you can't out a Rise Heart in this deck, then you're going to have massive problems because of the quick effect banish face down that they can do on one of your EVs. They banish all your quick plays and stuff like that. So a Rise Heart is definitely a problem, as we're going to activate the Prosperity now, and we're only going to banish 3, as we're going to then get a copy of Lily or Ash off of the Prosperity, and then from here we'll be able to activate the Pretty Memory, as we're then going to target the Holtea, as we don't really care about it. We're going to pitch the Sleepy in order to get the Lily, and then we'll use the Lily effect. Our opponent is going to use the Rafflesia in order to flip it face down with the Floodgate, but we'll still be able to get a search as we get the Friend. And our opponent is going to trigger the Sarah in order to get themselves another copy of Floodgate, and then we're going to be able to use the effect of Friend in order to get a search here after our opponent randomly picks one of 3. As we get ourselves the Eevee, we'll normal summon the Eevee, and from here we can then use its effect as we do happen to hit, and we're going to get ourselves the Happy Memory. And this is one of the things that you kind of want to remember going second, that the Happy Memory can potentially be kind of nuts in the right matchup. And as of now, we don't know what our opponent has said, but we do know that we have played through the Rafflesia, and we do have more gas through our quick play spells in hand. So from here, we're then going to go into the battle phase. We're going to attack over the Sarah. It'll be protected by the Rafflesia, but we'll get ourselves a search, which is the important part, as we get the field spell. And then from here, we're going to attack again because of the Happy Memory, which allows us to attack a number of times each battle phase up to the number of Happy Memory attached to it plus 1. Because we have 1, we get 2 attacks, and we're also going to be able to have the King twice in order to make its attack 625 and make it not really a threat, as we're then going to add ourselves the Leap. And the reason I'm doing this is because I'm trying to go for the Nor, because it is our best chance at winning this game, because we know that the Holtea is one of the back rows. Our opponent hasn't used the middle one, and we know that this one is the Floodgate. I was definitely feeling a little bit more confident, especially since we hadn't seen any hand traps either. So now we're going to go into the Downard, and this is another weird thing that happened in this replay. Our opponent could have activated the Holtea and triggered the Sarah and banished the Downard, but instead of that, they're actually going to let the Zeus go through. I'm not entirely sure why they allow it, but the point of this is to show that Zeus is what you do want to go for, along with being able to add gas to your hand so that if Zeus doesn't go through, you can continue to play. With that being said, we're going to clear our opponent's board. They also do have the evenly in hand, and they'll be able to use the Holtea from graveyard, so maybe they were factoring that in, but just felt weird to see that they actually allowed it considering they had Rafflesia on board. But we're going to bring out the Eevee, then use its effect in order to excavate. We'll end up hitting a Delicious Memory, and this was an enormous hit. We're then able to use the effect of the Eevee in order to go into the Plump by attaching the Delicious Memory. From here, we'll use the Plump's effect as we're going to target the Holtea along with a Sleepy Memory in our graveyard. And if you're wondering why I did that is because our field spell protects the Plump this turn, and we don't really care about Zeus too much right now because we hard committed into our board now that we have Nor access. Since our opponent can't target the Plump, they'll just end up targeting the Zeus. It'll become a body, but again, what we want is Nor. And from here, we're then going to allow the banish as we're going to set the Leap, then use the effect of the field spell in the standby phase in order to get another copy of Sleepy Memory, putting us at a total of 4 draws with the Nor. And from here, here we'll go into the standby phase as we're going to bring back the Zeus, then use the effect of the pump in order to get the 2 bottomless from the opponent's graveyard attached to it as our opponent surrenders, as we were about to get our draws, and I called it bottomless, but it was floodgate. What I was hoping to show with this replay is how to sequence your plays when you just have a hand full of quick plays and engine, along with how it looks when going second compared to when going first previously and ending on the Nor. Also see that in neither of the replays we did achieve the draw 6, but in this one we would have gotten the draw 4, which is still very powerful, and even if you're just getting a pot of greed, still a pot of greed. For this last one, I just want to do a little bit of a ruling section here because I saw a lot of mixed responses on a post in a Facebook group, so I thought if this was going to be a problem, it may as well be good to get it out of the way. The question was, our opponent uses a card that removes the Nor that affects the opponent rather than the card. Would it move the Nor, and would it trigger Friend along with Street? The answer is that Herald would be able to remove the Nor. Your Field and your Friend would be able to trigger off of that because they're still leaving off of your opponent's card effect. The Herald is just something that affects the player, but when it comes to Nor not being able to be affected by your opponent's activated effects, that has nothing to do with stuff like Herald of the Abyss or even evenly if you choose to banish it. The card is also used by our opponent, which again we're just going to bring out random stuff when triggering our field spell and the Friend. So with everything out of the way, we can finally get onto the deck profile, and the first things that I want to comment on are everything down here like Exceed Encore, and Squiddy has an entire video on this card as it's a counter to Arise Heart. It reads target one face-up Exceed monster your opponent controls that has an Exceed material, detach all Exceed materials from it, and if you do, return it to the extra deck. Then if there's a monster card in the graveyard among those detached Exceed materials, special summon as many of those monsters as possible from the graveyard to your opponent's side of the field in face-up defense position, and their levels are reduced by 1 on the field. Cards and effects cannot be activated in response to this card's activation, so you still will be potentially giving them back a Fenrir, and it doesn't necessarily counter double Arise Heart, though it does take care of Arise Heart Pass, and that also takes me to the Book of Moons and the Imperms, because you can see the Veilers and the Ash are kind of nice here to draw off the Sleepy Memory, but these are still counters to Arise Heart, which is what I wanted. Because you don't want your quick plays and stuff to get banished, it also kind of does hard counter your EVs being able to quick effect banish them face down and put you on have something else just isn't a favorable spot for this deck. The cool thing about this deck is also Rivalry. Being able to floodgate your opponent when you're using a deck that is kind of slow in itself and also plays a lot of fairies, which is convenient, can be a really strong side deck option for decks that can snowball sort of like Despia that get hard countered by Rivalry, so you should probably take note to that. Then there's extra deck options like Protector and the Lingeribo. This is for Ibli, and this is just another fairy that you can go into if you are under Rivalry, and it does give you a bit of removal. Then the Dark Ruler along with the Kurikara, Droll, Ghost Ogre, and Nib are just other options, generic ones that you can play. You'll see that the Scatter Shot, the Water Enchantress, Snow, Shaddoll Beast, Cobalt Eagle, and Salvation are all other options that you can play that you can discard off of your quick plays, and they give you some sort of value. I don't see the adventure stuff really sticking unless it's really good in the format, but I think that you do want to aim for consistency. Same with the Dark World stuff. I think that this is better with Max C. The Scattershot could be good for time, while the Shaddoll Beast, in my opinion, will see the most play amongst these. And the Cobalt Eagle along with the Salvation, I know that Jesse Cotton plays it in the main deck. If you watched his video, it's a choice I'm choosing to side because I just don't want to be drawing more going first cards when you have stuff like Leap along with your Street and the other EV quick plays that aren't necessarily the greatest going second unless you draw like a bunch of the quick plays together where you have enough gas to potentially play through boards, but it's still very solid in my opinion, as it's able to get you into your field spells. You can side in other field spells if you would like to. Can certainly be a strong enough option. Then onto some things in the extra deck I would like to point out. There are some boards where you may want to make the Robin over another EV Exceed the way I did, but you should also play your hands accordingly. There are times where you may not be able to reshuffle back your EVs with the leaps, and running through resources may not necessarily be the best choice available to you, but it still is definitely an option that you can go for. Your other Link 1s, the Princess Sprite along with the Nightingale, are just good ways to get into Zeus, along with the Princess Sprite just being able to get you into one of your spells, or even traps if you happen to sack into one of them. But outside of that, you really are just playing a bunch of duplicates with the Downward Magician and the Zeus, which is also a really important card when going second with this deck, as shown in the previous replay against Traptrix, which I understand they may not have played the most optimally, but even if they did out the EV Exceed before we went into the Downward, which they probably should have, we still had a way to get into another EV and play from there with even potential to get into a Nor if we happen to hit another Delicious Memory off the EV. As mentioned in the beginning, having the 6 extra slots with the Lily and the Sleepy Memory really do help the consistency of this deck, and you see that we're on the 3 Prosperity, and I bring up the 3 Prosperity because I see that not many people are on them, but the draw 6 is on your opponent's turn, or the draw 2 or draw 4 or draw 1, whatever you're drawing, and you'll also notice that I'm on multiple Field Spell and multiple Leap. As for now, this is because of Kashtira, but at the same time, I do think that there is some merit in running them beyond Kashtira format, because drawing them isn't necessarily that bad. You do have the Cobalt package, but that is just adding extra deck slots into Engine, and I didn't want to take away from Hand Trap and going second cards in general space either, especially when you consider that stuff like Super Heavy and Mana Dome are coming, which Mana Dome may not even be the greatest of decks, but the boards that it can put out are still massive. The Prosperities also being able to dig you into your outs like Book of Moon and Imperm for Arise Heart is another reason why I highly recommend the Prosperities. But with all of that out of the way, I don't think I have much else to say that I didn't show throughout the rest of the video, so I'm just going to get onto the card by card, and we have the 3 Eevee, the 3 Lily, the 3 Friends, the 3 Prosperity, the 3 Sleepy, the 3 Happy, the 3 Pretty, the 3 Delicious, the 2 Street, the 2 Leaps, the 3 Veilers, the 3 Imperms, the 2 Book of Moon, or the 3 Book of Moon, the 3 Ash Blossoms, the 2 Zeus, the 1 Downer, the 2 Plump, the 2 Beauty, the 2 Happy, the 2 Nor, the 1 Happiness, the 1 Robin, or the 1 Nightingale, the 1 Robin, and the 1 Princess Bride to round out the deck profile. Anyways, if you made it this far into the video, I thank you so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. If you have any suggestions, feel free to leave them down below. It's Bones, signing out.